Hi, everybody. I'm Annette McCoy. You're watching Angel Heart Radio, hopefully on Angel Heart Radio Facebook page or YouTube, and you're live. And we are too. Janet Hickox is with me.
Hello, Annette. It's great to see you.
It's wonderful, Janet, for you to be here, for me to be here. This is my final show for 2023. And what a great way to end the year, talking about the end of the year astrologically, which, of course, Janet, you are so proficient and so aware of all that there is to know astrologically. So it's a pleasure
Well,
to be with you today.
thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here as always. And I always like this last sort of broadcast that you and I do of the year because we do get to kind of look back, a little retrospective of the year behind us. And maybe even I'll drop some nuggets about what to expect in 2024. We'll just see.
Ooh, that sounds very exciting.
Mm, I
Has
think
it been a good
exciting is
year?
one word. Yeah, it's no. I think it's been an odd year. How about that? It's not been bad. It's not been good necessarily. I think it's just
Right.
been odd. And people not really where they would have thought they would have been by this point
Mm-hmm.
in the year. I mean, at least that's what I'm hearing from people. It's like, you know, I had this grand plan when I entered into January, and now suddenly it's December, and I haven't even gotten half the things ticked off my list that I thought I would get done. C'est la vie,
When
right?
we, the thing is, though, we mightn't have those things ticked off, but we've ticked off a lot of other things that we didn't necessarily expect to. Do you find
Yes, and
that?
I think I do find that. And I think that's exactly the reason why that's happened. Because, the universe is a little bit funny sometimes. It has a different idea. From the soul level, there are things sometimes that we have to address that we didn't anticipate and addressing as we went into the year. And so, we get kind of off on a little tangent, perhaps, of things that we have to take care of that do take us away from what our initial plans may be. And, that's going to be with us for literally the next 200 years. So there's not much I can say that says, oh, hey, it's going to get better, because we're in an age of air. And when we're in an age of air, what's needed most is adaptability, flexibility, kind of rolling with the, punches, if you will, or the flow of the energy. And, most of us, I know I'm this way, that I don't necessarily, I'm a Gemini. I can do this,
Mm,
but I don't like being like pushed off course. And so we
mm.
fight it, right? We get upset about it. And uh, if we can get over that, for the rest of our lives, Annette, we're going to be in an age of air. So,
Right.
in fact, everybody on the planet will be, because I don't think anybody will live 200 years, at least none that I know of. Yeah.
Now, your
So,
friend Tom
oh,
has joined us,
hi,
and
Tom.
he's saying hello to everyone, to you and I, and the Angel Heart Radio fam. So thanks, Tom. He also wanted to know whether it was mistletoe on my head. And I said, no, it's my halo.
Great halo. It's a great halo. It's very Christmassy looking.
A lovely time of the year, isn't it, Janet, when we're celebrating? And I think it's important that we do celebrate uh, lots of things in our lives. You've got a wonderful celebration at the moment.
Indeed. She is adorable. She is the sweetest little thing. And she is erasing a whole lot of other dramas at the moment that uh, I prefer to play with the baby.
Of course.
Of course, who doesn't want to play with the baby? Yeah. So
All
yeah,
right.
we ended the year on a high note here with that, and I'm extraordinarily grateful.
So, getting back to the topic for today,
Hmm.
astrologically, how is the year going to end. I know it's fast. My good, you were just saying, my goodness me, way back in February when we had the chat about, oh, what's going to happen, and now we're saying,
What
oh,
happened? Yeah, it's been an interesting year, and I think the fact that the very last 1 or 2 days of this year hosts an aspect of Jupiter changing directions. Jupiter being the planet of growth and expansion and good fortune. And when planets are retrograde, things tend to move internally, so we don't really see outwardly as much the changes that we've been involved with. But the very end of this year, we have Jupiter turning direct. And I think that allows us to have optimism at the end of the year, right? To see that maybe, as crazy as it has been politically, mentally, physically, emotionally, in the world, on the world stage in our nations, that there's hope, right? And that there's um, possible positive and optimistic way that we can say goodbye to 2023, but then also that opens the doorway for how we greet 2024. It's a
okay.
positive one. Yeah, and we don't, and to be fair, we don't usually have such a very positive. It's not that we have negative ones. I just mean that this one is extraordinarily positive, and this is Jupiter in the sign of Taurus. So it could even point to more better economic times. It could point to, people ending the year with more money in their pockets than they anticipated. And to me, that also is very a good way to find ourselves at the end of a calendar year. But we have days in between now and then that we
Right,
have to get
yes.
through. Right. And we've already, I mean, here we are. Today's the 6th in my part of the world, 7th in your part of the world. And we've already been through some very tricky transits. Like the first week in December, Mercury moved into Capricorn and then came into a sextile with Saturn, and then Venus squared Pluto, and Venus moved into Scorpio, and Neptune turned direct. And oh my God, right? Lots of
Right.
things going on. And not to say that they're negative or not good types of changes, but when they stack on one another like that, um, particularly, with a moon that was in there, the full moon at the end of November, uh, it can make it, feel like we're like moving from, one fire to another or one drama to another. So,
Mhm.
um, but that's going to slow down a bit because as we move into the middle of this month, Mercury moves into retrograde. And
Um,
all year long, Mercury's been retrograding in Earth signs. So we started out 2023 with him retrograde in Capricorn. And then the next one was Virgo, or Taurus, excuse me. And then we had a Virgo Mercury retrograde. Now, this one is also beginning with Mercury in Capricorn, but different from the rest of the Mercury retrogrades in the year. He crosses backward into a different sign. So he's moving from Capricorn into the sign of Sagittarius. And that means we are having to be both the practical, grounded, down to earth expression of our minds and our communication, but moving backward into more of the fire and more of the adventurer side. And the one thing that we have to watch for during the Mercury retrograde this time is being very watchful of our words, because our words can be, words can be used as swords or verbal gunslinging, where we're just shooting words at people without even thinking about what we're doing. And Sagittarius has a tendency to be blunt, be right, honest and to the point. So we want to be watchful that the things we say are honest, but are delivered in a way that is not brutal.
mm-hmm.
So that's our Mercury retrograde. And he'll be retrograde right up until January 1st. So we don't necessarily start the new year with Mercury in retrograde, but we start him with him in the shadow, right? The retro shade, we call it. where he's
Uh-huh.
at the end of the cycle. So things may still be a little wonky as we go into 2024, but not because of the retrograde, because of that waning retrograde effect, sort of the
Mm.
backwash, if you will, of the retrograde. So that
Mm.
makes it interesting in the middle. So we had the beginning with a ton of different crazy things going on, the middle where Mercury retrograde comes into play. And at the end, we have the changing of the seasons, winter for us, summer for you, and Mercury retrograding backward at that point into Sagittarius. So Sun moving into Capricorn, Mercury, his companion, moving backwards into Sagittarius. And that whole last week of the month is one kind of aspect transit after another, which means that
Mm.
we end the year with the same sort of breathlessness that we started the month of December with. The only difference is that last couple of days, that final aspect is very positive,
Right.
delightful even, right? I'm looking forward to that day. Can you tell, Annette?
Yeah, absolutely. May I welcome Tammy Collins Smith, who says, Happy Wednesday, Earth dwellers.
Happy Wednesday, Tammy, and happy Thursday to the Earth dwellers in Australia.
That's right. I said, and
Yeah.
happy Thursday to Tammy.
She's like, what? Hmm.
So Tammy certainly gave away where she is by saying happy Wednesday.
Yeah. Yep. She's here in the good old USA. But like she is just about as diametrically far away from me as she can be.
Right.
Like
So
I'm
she's
in the
over on the East
northwest corner,
Coast.
she's in the southeast corner of the state. Or I mean of the country. So
Right.
yeah. Such a big country that sometimes I forget, like it can feel to us like we're living in different parts of the world or different countries even because we're so far apart.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a bit like
Yeah.
myself here in Melbourne and friends in Perth, because with daylight saving, there's actually 3 hours difference. They don't do daylight saving. So, and that, I don't know about you, Jenna, but I'm trying to contact people in my own country on a 3 hour difference, that makes 2 hours is okay. That I find that quite practical, but 3 hours, my goodness me. It works well for me if I'm driving home late at night. I can ring someone who lives in Perth
Because
quite
it's
easily.
earlier there. It's earlier
Yeah,
in
that's
Perth than
right.
it is.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's
yes,
right, because you're on the east coast of the country. Perth is on the west coast. And that would
yes,
be like in the US, the west coast is earlier than the east coast in terms of
yes.
time.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
3 hours difference, aren't you,
Yeah.
to
From
New
the
York?
east coast. Yep. Yep,
Mm.
exactly. And it gets weird now because some states have decided not to go with daylight savings time.
Mm.
And sometimes when, from my astrologer's point of view, I really need to know what freaking time zone I'm working with.
Right,
And I'm
yes.
forever correcting my astrology programs, it seems like now, because like I know that they're not on daylight savings time, but the program thinks they are, or, they're on
Hmm.
standard time or something. So it's been kind of crazy. It just clued into that. I got to really watch those programs because they're not all ready yet to do all of these different changes in time zones. It's kind of funny.
Right.
Yeah. For as much as technology saves me a lot of time, that one makes me double check every time.
Yeah, true. Now,
Hmm.
Tammy's saying far away physically, but our hearts are neighbours. Isn't
Ah,
that
very true.
lovely?
That's very nice, Tammy. Yeah. So, uh, as we look, across the year, there
Mm.
have been some big moves in planets that are going to be sort of key for us to be really aware of as we move into 2024 or as we finish 2023. I don't mean to say like we have to really look far ahead, uh, but when we got to the month of March of 2023, we had two big changes.
Mm.
Saturn moved into Pisces and Pluto moved into Aquarius, even if he was just doing a little toe touch. But it gave us an opportunity to sort of look into the future. Like, it was like having a crystal ball because the issues and the things that were coming up from the time Pluto moved into Aquarius and in March all the way to June when he moved backward again into Capricorn, we got to see what some of those issues might be. One very big one, AI, and all of the impact that artificial intelligence might have upon us as we move into the sign of the future and what the transformational energy might be around that as next year, as we move further into 2024, Pluto will not do a retrograde back to Capricorn after November. He'll move forward and be in Aquarius for 20 years. So for some
Mm,
people, that might take us all the way into our deaths or into our elder age. And it's a big deal then to be paying attention to what's going on, what's transforming in your life around you right now, so that you can be very aware and deliberately move that energy in the direction that you want to be moving. So I have a feeling that we're kind of on a collision course with technology as we start moving forward. And that was kind of presaged by Pluto's first little toe tap into Aquarius.
mhm.
Yeah. And then Saturn doesn't make any changes this year. He stays in, or after 2023, he stays in Pisces. So the Pisces lessons that we began learning somewhere back around March, I think it was 23rd. And I may have that backwards. It might have been March 7th for Saturn and the 23rd for Pluto, are really, setting in now, right? Where are the walls that you have that are up that you need to bring down? What fears or limitations are you dealing with or you're given ample opportunities to work through? And that goes on all the way through 2024. It does not end until we get into early 2025. So
Right.
deal with your fears, deal with the victim energy that you're seeing in your life. Be
Mhm.
willing to take those steps forward so you can clear the karma and not keep handling more and or packing on more and more of the karma in your life.
Mhm.
It's
Okay,
a
so
good one.
it's up to us, isn't it?
Mm,
How we choose to deal with the experiences that come our way.
very true. That is very true. And it's difficult in the heat of the moment sometimes to remember that it's always your choice about how it is you're going
Yep,
to show up, but it
yep.
is always your choice, right? Are you going to, be in a uh, horrible mood and be angry, or are you going to be open-hearted and loving? I mean, it's always our choice. And I always have to remember that too. It's like, these are the times where we're becoming very response able and or responsible.
Mm-hmm.
And, we just have another, what, 2.5, 3 years before we enter into a huge evolutionary leap in the very fabric of our DNA. And it's likely going to be impactful first with the kids that are born in that period of time. But all of creation will begin to resonate at a different frequency. So that's going to be an interesting thing that is in the backdrop of everything that we're experiencing from here on, because nothing changes. Like even Pluto moving into Aquarius, we had warning, we had time, before where we could sort of feel it building and coming on, like a
Mm-hmm.
cusp of it, perhaps. Well, we're on the cusp of this big shift evolutionarily that began 400 years ago. So, 2 or 3 years or 3 or 4 years, even, it's not, I would have said probably about 10 years from 2027. So around 2017, we were entered into the cusp of this major shift that had to occur. And hello, we're in it.
Yes.
We're in it right now. Yeah.
Right in the midst of it.
Yeah. And I really don't know how to wear it well yet. Um, I mean, if you look at it from a human design perspective, the whole of the circuitry in how all of the gates work together changes. And some circuits are let go of, and others are new circuits are brought in. And the circuitry is just how all the different traits work together. So, how we work together, if you just want to read that into it as humanity, even how we work together changes. And hopefully
Mhm.
for the positive, because I'm really tired of fighting and all of that. Um, but it can be very setting at first when we experience these level of changes in our world. So it's kind of exciting, but it's
Yeah.
also a little daunting. Like, what's that going to do? Haven't we been through enough? Do I have to do it? No, 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 don't make me. So, yeah. But, from the standpoint of astrology and human design and any major divination system, we are always in a moment of evolution every day, every minute of every day. There's an invitation for us to change or to be
Hmm.
different or to be better or to make a change in some way. So it's not like it's new. It's just that it seems to stack up, right? We're being asked to move through a lot of things very quickly. And I think 2023 showed us that there was a lot going on, in the wake of COVID, in the wake of wars going on, big wars in the world, and how that impacts us all. In as much as are we hearing truth ever? I don't know. Do you? I mean, it was interesting to me. I'm going to share a story real quick. So, yesterday, we went to a little Christmas store here on San Juan Island.
Hmm.
And this little older woman, like 83 years old, she runs the store. She runs it all year long, and it is all about Santa and Christmas, right? Christmas decorations and candies from around the world, not not ones from the US. So we were, looking through some of the candy, and she's telling us about it. And she goes, somebody asked her for a specific kind of candy, and that person was told, no, right now I can't get candy from England because they're in an economic depression. And I looked at her like, what?
What?
Like, what are you talking about? She goes, yeah, you're not going to hear about it here in the US, but this whole Russian-Ukraine war has created an issue where they're not able to get access to fuel. Like a lot of their oil and so forth comes from uh, Russia, natural gas from Russia. And since
Mm.
that stuff's not being delivered, it's putting pressure on their economy. And so a lot of the things that they would normally export for, say, Christmas to other parts of the world isn't happening. And I was aghast that I didn't have any clue,
Mm. Mm.
right? Like I thought I was pretty up on what's going on in the
Yeah.
world, but apparently no. And why? Because, right, if we knew the impact here in America that this war was having, we probably wouldn't be so willing to have our government give money, more and more money to this war.
Mm.
So it's just like eyes. You guys got to open your eyes. You got to listen and with a deeper, like
Yes.
listening with some real depth. Um,
Mm.
because I had no clue, no clue.
Hmm.
Yeah. So 2023 has brought us this brink, I think, of I didn't mean to be a poet there, but okay. Um, of being more transparent, of really
Mm.
looking deeper into what's really running, what programs are running, and what are you being manipulated by and into, and why? Like, why is that
Mhm.
happening? And, the closer we move into Aquarian energy, as Pluto's really moved into Aquarius for a longer period than just a few months, um, the whole concept of humanity and what does it mean to be a human changes. And that'll be interesting to see. I mean, it has its highs, surely, but it also has, its stumbling blocks of technology. How much technology is too much? When is it just enough? And
Mm.
when is it not enough? And Are we using it to its benefit, to the highest and best for all men? And or are we just using it for the rich or for the West rather than the East or whatever? So big, big questions like that on the horizon as we start to move ahead. So how do we deal with it? Like, how do I deal with it as a person, as an individual? Because that's the important thing. That's what you all want to know, right?
Yeah,
How do
that's
you
true.
deal
Yeah.
with it? And you deal with it by looking into everything that you're being told and asking those questions. Is it true? You don't want to just get your information from conspiracy sources. You don't want to get your information just from mainstream sources. You got to find a crossover point. You got to find a way where you're getting access to the whole truth and not just a slanted version of it. Then you have to be responsible for the steps that you're going to take in your life as we move forward here. Where are you going to put your money, your dollars? What are you going to spend your time on? What are you going to spend your resources doing? Because even though, like, we can't as individuals necessarily change um, the way the bigger, wider world works, we can actually make a change by being the highest and best of what we could be, right? Living our truth, walking our talk. Because I
Yes.
can't make the whole rest of the world change, but I can make sure that what I do is in alignment with my gifts and my talents or my truth, my authority. And that's an important thing to remember that we're just not sheeple.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. There's not a lot that, well, are we able to impact on anything in the outside world? The only thing we can do is live to be our best. And for us to live through love, as Jimi Hendrix, I think, once said, when the feeling of love, oh, I'm going to get this wrong now, replaces something else, there will be peace in the world. So, we have to keep continually being as loving as we possibly can. And of course, the number one person we need to be loving to is ourselves.
Saying, yeah, yeah. But it does seem to me that this has been a year for a lot of people's darkness to come up, a lot of the shadows to come up, a lot of
Right.
our fears, our limitations, our karma, if you will, to come up. And, and the experience of those things happening aren't pleasant. It's just not. Uh, but it's crucial if you want to go into a new age, right? And we are moving into a new age. And
Right.
that requires new energy. It requires a new faith, perhaps, in our higher selves, that there is a plan and that plan is being, um, the plan is unrolling or being unveiled as we go on. And it's so hard. It really is hard to do that.
Mm.
Uh, but when I look at uh, the future, I see difficulties ahead. I want to say this very carefully because I don't want to predispose anybody to thinking, oh, it's all going
Right.
to be, rot from here on. There are difficulties ahead in the astrology, but we have a lot of opportunities to change the course of history when we stand in our authority, when we come together as humanity. Okay, that's probably as positive as I can make that because the next few years are going to be crazy astrologically, maybe more so than the ones that we've already been through. So be ready. Be ready to live your best life, right? But do it consciously.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So looking ahead at the last week of the month in particular,
Mm.
um, we have a lot of transits that are positive or aspects that are positive, meaning they're of the sort where the two planets involved kind of get along or they can they understand one another, or they can work in a similar way. And yet, when you have that many kind of caked on top of one another, some things can get lost in the translation. And one of the biggest things that I think will be a part of our like clearing away the cobwebs is that yesterday, at least in my time zone, so yesterday, my time zone would, well, I guess it's still yesterday for each one of us. December 5th for
Mm-hmm.
me, December 6th for you, Neptune turned direct. And because Neptune is the planet of things that are all spiritual, um, that is about the unseen realm, is about like clearing away cobwebs, right? Seeing through the blur. Uh, then with him moving direct, we have more access to seeing the truth now, or seeing what, was hidden from us before. So I'm really excited by that, even though whenever a big planet changes direction, we always have this sort of feeling of, being, I always think of it as a rag doll, right? We're moving from one side to the other. And Neptune direct is going to take us into maybe having to clear away some of the blur and to see things with different eyes. Um, to reach more for our inner self, our higher spiritual selves, in order to move through things. Way back when I was looking ahead, God, this was probably in 2020. Looking
Mm-hmm.
ahead, astrologers, to look ahead, we often look back. Like, when was the last time in history where this kind of preponderance of transits was happening? And when we look back, it was 800 years ago or so, when this kind of transiting um, planet thing was happening. And the only difference between now and what was going on then is Neptune being more
Mm-hmm.
able to call on our spiritual authority as individuals rather than being dictated to by the church or by a religion. Now, that doesn't mean that, ideologically that religions are wrong, but in those ages, in that age, they were not empowered to think for themselves about God or spiritual things. They were following along with whatever religion they were a part of. So Neptune is the only big difference that we have right now from the 800 years ago, the Dark Ages, we called it then. And that's huge because
Mm.
now we have our selfhood. Now we can choose to believe in what our own truth is. We don't need an intermediary to take us to God or spirit, right?
Right.
We can go there ourselves, where 800 years ago that was not an option. Um, So it's a different time, and Neptune is the one that makes the difference. At that time, Neptune was, first of all, Neptune wasn't even known as a planet at that point. But beyond that, Neptune wasn't in his own sign. And Neptune was not as empowered at that time. He was kind of quiet, sitting in behind the scenes. Literally, it's not until a planet busts into our consciousness by being discovered that we add the consciousness of that planet into our awareness. Up until that point, we're not aware of it. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that, I think that's a huge difference. We have more ability to choose our spiritual path ahead of us and to live by spiritual truths that are not, you know, church oriented, shoved down our throats by churches or religions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a different age that we live in now. So that
Right.
makes a big difference. Makes a big difference.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now,
It,
Pauline E. Blenner has joined us, and she'd like to know Neptune direct in what sign?
Pisces,
Right. And
the sign he
Pauline's al-
rules.
Pauline's also wanting to know the 14th, that your workshop for the year ahead. Janet, maybe you'd like to
Yeah.
tell others about it. Do you want to do
The,
it?
Yeah, ideally it is on the 14th at 12 noon. It is one that is recorded, so you don't have to stay live, right? Everybody who registers gets the link to the broadcast and to be able to get a free calendar for personalized astrological calendar for the next year. And as well, often with that, I sent out a discounted option for a transit reading so we can look ahead at your 2024 and get a kind of idea of what's lining up for you. And all of that is coming on the 14th. And it's $25. The webinar itself is $25. You get the recording, you get your free report, which is like 80 pages long. It's not like some little tinsy little 5-page thing. It's big. And then off the offer for a discounted 2024 reading.
Like anything you do, Janet, it is well worth the investment. So if people are interested, I've just popped your website, which is behind you
Also
anyway,
behind
isn't
my
it?
head, I moved my head a little.
living-astrology.com. So if
Yes.
you'd like to find out more, please. And especially if you haven't visited Janet's website yet, give yourself a little gift. Go along and see all that's there and what Janet is offering. She's a very generous woman.
Thank you. I just love what I do. Uh, at any rate, uh, that was a good question, Pauline, because when a planet like Neptune, or any planet for that matter, is moving through a sign that it rules, it has more power and it becomes bigger than life in our life, right? Because it is empowered to be the best expression of itself, the truest expression of itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, because Pisces is also a sign of religion or beliefs, philosophy or connection to spirit or God, if you will, then we have an empowerment theme of being more spiritually aware now more than we've had. Well, of course, Pisces has been home to Neptune for 14, will be home for 14 years. And he's getting closer to the end of that transit. And I think it is early 2025 when Neptune will move out of Pisces and into Aries. So it really behooves us now. I mean, if you want to plan for the future, right now be doing your spiritual work. Because once that planet moves into Aries, that's a lot of dynamic, confrontational energy happening.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe even difficulties because Neptune is not comfortable in that sign. So we'll see how
Right.
that plays out. I have yet to go back in history to see what it was like the last time Neptune was in Aries.
Mm-hmm.
But I guarantee you it's going to be interesting.
Good
Let's just
word.
say
Good
that.
word.
Third word, interesting.
Pauline's saying, highly recommend the package consultation bundle that because Pauline's had a few with you and she would like to
We have
recommend it.
traversed many paths with Pauline. She and I have gone, she and I have done some very interesting work together because she was there with me as I was learning new things with the Akashic records, um, in new and different astrological techniques. So it's been perfect to have somebody like Pauline who was so open and willing to move through things that we were just testing and we were just playing and having a good time. I hope we were
Gorgeous.
having a good time.
Now, Pauline is saying Neptune um, thought was planet of delusion versus reality.
It does have that element. That's why I said in the beginning, it's like the blur, right? Where we have to take the cobwebs and move them out of our way so that we can see more clearly. Because there is always the potential there to have that delusion or that disillusionment as a part of the experience with Neptune. To
Mm-hmm.
to, it reminds me sometimes of our gullibility, right? Neptune energy can be where we are gullible, like we'll believe anything. or we'll believe what we've been told rather than, using a more Saturnian approach, which would be using your due diligence to go searching for answers and to do your own work around different things. But on the high side, which is, I like to look at the high side too, better than the low side. But um, it's a return to our divine truth, right? Our divine truth. So, there's I I always think it's funny though that Neptune rules spirit when the god Neptune was the ruler of the deep ocean and earthquakes and floods and things like that. Uh, so, I mean, sometimes it might just be fun to do a whole course on just Neptune and what that, is. It's hard to pin it down, and that's the nature of Neptune. You can't pin it down.
Mm. Hmm.
Yeah. But we do have,
Neptune.
this whole last week of the month. Um, and we didn't really do this in an order, but the new moon and the full moon, right? Those are always interesting to look at too. So before we go to the last week, the new moon happens just about, I think it was 8 hours before Mercury turns retrograde.
Hmm.
So set some powerful intentions. The new moon will be in Sagittarius. That's the time for us to dream big, right? To see the bigger picture, to be optimistic, right? To see that, get beyond, what's just in front of your face. And then right after that, Mercury turns retrograde. So you might expect that there could be a slowing down of the uh, creation of your intentions because of the two happening almost simultaneously. But that shouldn't mean that we don't set intentions and that we don't plan to follow our hearts and our goals. It just means you might expect some bumps along the way, um, which, which means, like, the big thing that for people, as we're going into the end of the year is about setting resolutions, right? New Year's resolutions. You might all
Mm.
want to wait until you get January-ish, 11th-ish, when we're beyond the shadow of Mercury's retrograde. Give yourself time. So, what do you use this time for then? Well, retrospective, right? Go backwards and see, like, what did you leave undone this year, or what part of your dream can you work on right now without really going all the way into beginning something new? Um, Looking backwards before you could look forward. I already have my New Year's word. Every year I pick a word that I'm
Yeah.
gonna, be in resonance with. And my word for 2024 is going to be completion. Not be
Mm.
not because I'm getting done with something, but because as I look back across 2023, 2022, 2021, there are things that I started that I never brought to completion.
Right.
Yep. So I kind of feel like 2024 might be giving me this pivotal time to do that before I start the next big step.
Well done,
And
Janet. I'm trying to work, Pauline has said, is our expectation and intention we can be gullible in? I'm not
I'm
quite
not sure.
sure.
I'm not quite sure about
I
that.
don't quite understand. No, and there's another thing here. We can fine tune during Mercury retrograde.
Yes, fine
Those,
tune. It's a
sorry,
time for reevaluation, right? So you can go backwards, reevaluate. Am I
right,
where I
yeah,
wanted to be? What else did I need to do? What, like in my case, as I was doing that, I thought I need to complete some things in order for me to feel like I can actually embrace something new.
right.
That's how I came across that. The word for me was like, oh, wow, you know, do the retrospective, reevaluate, see where you are, not to beat yourself up, right? It's always tempting to go, oh, darn it, I was supposed to get that done and I didn't. Don't do that. Just, observe. Yeah, that's left undone. is it worth my time and effort to complete it? Or is it something I can say, okay, I'm done with that already. There's no need to take it any further.
Mhm.
Because sometimes we come to a natural end point with something because that's as far as we needed to take it. We didn't need to go any further.
Right. Yeah.
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 So,
Uh, it's Pauline saying, and thank you, Pauline, for the reminder about fine tuning during Mercury retrograde, those new moon intentions to let go, release to the higher power, surrender at full moon. I always get confused, so I like that. So we write our intentions for the new at the new moon time, and then we release them under the full moon. Is that right? My friends
yes-ish.
used to do that.
Yeah. And the it's not so important that you do it like that. It's important that what you do has meaning for you. But we
Right.
do know
Mhm.
that the new moon offers up a time for us that's full of potential, right? There's nothing written on the slate yet. So it's to us to write what's going to be on the slate.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get to full moon, the full moon has a very revelatory energy to it because it's the brightness of both, of that reflection of the sun through the moon.
Mm-hmm.
So it can show us by, the light bulb coming on, oh, I've been doing this the wrong way. I need to reevaluate what I'm doing and move in a different direction. Or maybe the light bulb says, oh, I forgot to add this other element to my intention. So it gives us the full moon is really a time for us to release any blocks that have been in the way. And that might be something that people do by, writing those things down on paper and burning them and releasing them to the spirit or ether. Um, it could be a time where we realize that we have to change the plan somewhat, right? It's not working the way that we thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
So the full moon offers up a new beginning of its own, right? One that is like a moving down a path and you come to a block and you're like, maybe I'll take that fork in that road and go this way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the full moon offers up. So it's the new moon that's the blank. Like we don't know. We're just saying, okay, my intention is to XYZ. When we get to the full moon, we're like, oh, well, I forgot to add this in, or I forgot to. So it gives us a chance to sort of rework our plans a little bit. And then the quarter moons also help, right? They're also like giving us a little crisis moment. So between the new and the full moon, we have the first quarter, which is a crisis of action. Like, what am I going to do? Right? I had this great intention with this new moon, and I've been sitting on it for a week now and haven't done anything about it. So the crisis is of, well, what am I going to do? Then we get to that full moon and we have the opportunity to tweak the plan, to start it, something different with it, to release a part of it, embrace another part of it. And then we get to the second quarter, which happens between the full moon and the next new moon. And that's a time where we have to change our consciousness. We come to a critical, like, awareness of a thought process that's gone wrong, of a belief pattern that's stuck in our way, perspective that we need to change in order to take that next step in our intention. And then the next new moon. So it has its own little eloquent sort of storyline that runs through that 28 and a half, 29 day uh, cycle of the moon. But all the
Right.
planets do this. All of them do, right? They have the newness, they have the quarter, they have the fullness, that second quarter, and then the new again. But because we see the moon, right? We see it. That's very,
Yes.
well, we don't because we're caked in clouds at the moment, but we see the impact as this moon changes its face every day. So we connect to it faster, easier. Yeah. So I don't stick necessarily with the idea that only the new moon is a time for us to set intentions. I don't,
No. Mm.
because sometimes the whole intention was wrong to start with. And you're like, no, I want to do it this way, or I want to have this instead. And don't be afraid to make changes to your intentions, moderate them, modify them as you see fit, right? There are no hard and fast rules about intention. The only one that I ever tell people is that we are all um, designed to create intentions in a different way, right? There's no cookie cutter model for how to create. You have your own path to creation,
Yes.
as I do, and as everybody listening out there does. And in order to find that, we go to the seventh dimension through your Akashic records. We bring in your manifesting blueprint and then talk about how it works for you, right? How does it work for you? Because not everybody was born at the new moon.
No. Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's going to manifest in the same way. So, yeah. Well, internet's wobbly here. Brandon, there.
Now, before we
When
finish, Janet, we've gone all around the shop. Is there anything else that you would like to say?
Yes, there's always plenty for me to say. So, along with the last day of the month, or the 30th and the 31st of December, having the very powerful Jupiter going direct that I think ends the month so brilliantly, the last week of the year
Mm,
always ends with the sun at the gate of joy. And that starts the day after Christmas, usually, or Christmas Day, right? The day after Christmas. So that
hmm
whole last week of the year reminds us that joy isn't something that we find outside of us. It's something that comes from within us,
hmm
right? We're always, going after happiness and trying to find it outside of us. Like, does it live, in this outside world? But it really doesn't. It lives inside. And the earth during that same week gives us this opportunity to come to a stillness, right? Some of the songs around Christmas, like Silent Night, where you're talking about coming into silence, you're coming into stillness in order to see more clearly what brings us joy, what brings us to that experience of true joy. And that is such a great way to end the year, right? To remind us that we contain the ingredients for joy. It's not outside, it's inside. It's an inside job.
Absolutely. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's always something to look forward to, for the end of the calendar year. And we have that time then between the ending of our calendar year and the beginning of the next human design year, which isn't until January 22nd, to really
hmm
determine where we've been. Where do we want to go? What's really right for me? What's not worth my time or effort, or uh, you know, reevaluation time before we so we don't have to rush headlong and know on January 1st, we got to have this, plan. It just doesn't work that way. It's just another
Mm.
day on the calendar, but it does give us this opportunity to rethink what is right for us as individuals. So,
Thank
so happy
I would like
holidays,
to,
everybody.
I would like to thank Pauline for all of her wonderful comments. Her latest is Great Full Moon is the day after Christmas too. Mm.
Yeah, the 26th is the full moon, and that full moon is in Cancer. And that's because the sun at that point is in Capricorn. So that really brings home and family into focus. Cancer is the sign of home and family and traditions and, living from love and uh, finding balance between our home life and our work life, if you will, or our outside life. And it's an appropriate full moon to end the year as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So
Very
I
good,
could
very
keep,
good.
yeah, I could keep going. We don't need to. We'd be
You
here another
can.
hour.
So,
Well, no, I think, one last thing I might say is before we get to the gate of joy, we
mm,
move through um at the seasons. We have this period of time, every change of the season, a gateway opens, if you will, for us to bring in more and more of the experience of love into our lives. And when we get to December 20th, which is just the day before the winter solstice, we move into, in human design, the sun and earth end up parking at gates that we consider the gates of love. And the sun will end up at the gate of self-love, while the earth will be at the gate of the love of humanity or compassion, right? The compassion that we feel for our fellow human beings, and all of that stemming from the measure of love that we have for ourselves. So every season, there is an opportunity for us to reconnect with that energy of love and walk through then that seasonal gate, with the intention perhaps of demonstrating more and more in my life, in this case, self-love and compassion for my fellow humans. So that's an important thing for us to remember too, that, we have a seasonal shift coming. We have a powerful full moon coming. Then we have a powerful last week of the month that brings us into joy and the joyful expression. And then we start a new year. So we really do end the year with a lot of different positive opportunities.
well, isn't that's wonderful to know?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yay, let's seize that opportunity. I also found the quote, it was from Jimi Hendrix, and I haven't used it for a few years, and of course, forgot what it said. But when the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace.
I love it. Let's hope this happens in 2024.
Wouldn't that be fantastic? Now,
Uh,
Tammy's saying thank you both. I hope much joy to each of you. And of course, that goes out to everybody who's listening at the moment.
Thank you, Tammy, and thank you, Pauline and Tom, for being out there and your comments today. That's
Yeah,
always nice. Nice to have interaction with people.
it is, isn't it? Yes, and
Hmm.
Pauline's wishing us happy, what's the Jewish celebration? Hanukkah?
Hanukkah,
Yes,
Hanukkah,
and
yeah.
Advent Immaculate Conception and New
And happy
Year's.
birthday to Pauline. Her birthday will be on, I think it is the 19th of December
Oh,
of this month.
right.
So coming up.
And Tom's saying awesome quote. Amen.
Yeah.
Another Jimmy quote. If if a six was a nine, I don't mind. Not
Okay.
sure what that, I'm a bit lost. Oh, never mind. And there's another person joining us, Kuba, sending love and light. And that's a wonderful thing to do, Janet, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. Indeed it
Well,
is.
it's
So,
surely. So we come to the end of another, almost another year. My goodness me. So
yeah.
thank you all, Janet. Thank you, thank you, thank you
Thank
for
you,
all
Annette.
that you offered us in 23. I do look forward to 24. And everybody, may you all have a wonderful festive season, a nice break. I mean, here in Australia, because it's summer, we tend to have a break in January, which is what I do. And so Janet and I return the first week in February. So I look forward to being with you, Janet, and everybody else then. In the meantime, best foot forward, spread the joy, spread the love, and make sure that you're enjoying being who you are.
That's right. Happy holidays, everybody. Happy holidays,
Bye.
Annette. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye
Mm.
bye.